The Wednesday, May 1st, 2024, Inkster Special City Council meeting is called to order. Madam Clerk, could you please have a roll call?
Mayor Nolan,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Chisholm,
Here.
Councilwoman Rutledge,
Here.
Councilman Bishop,
Present.
Councilwoman Scott,
Present.
Councilwoman Howard,
Here.
Councilwoman Richardson. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay. Great.
Is this a special meeting? Oh, yeah. I see there it is. Sorry.
Special meeting.
Sorry.
New business. We have legal services discussion wrap up. I was just talking to Councilwoman Rutledge. I think we should probably make a motion to discuss the interviews that we took to make sure we all understand the same thing as far as what the bids were. And then after that, we can take action after we have a discussion and make sure we're all on the same page. Because when I spoke to her and I had two different understandings on one of the bids. So we need to at least come to a consensus on what we heard and what is being proposed before we vote on it. All right, can we have a motion to open the discussion?
So moved.
To probably move to second. Any discussion on the discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right. And I can start by what we were talking about. We were talking about the three different firms. I'm sure everybody kind of ranked who they like best and who they like the least and all that stuff. But what I understand, and you guys correct me if you have a different understanding. The first, Ms. Jemison, her firm, their flat fee was a total of $385,000 a year. That's what I heard, which is $32,500 a month. Okay, and that covers everything. The Todd Perkins Group flat fee was $25,000 a month, and that covers everything. Litigation and criminal prosecutions. Now, Terry Johnson and Pentec, their firm, they had a slightly different bid. Their proposal was $15,000 a month for the criminal prosecutions, as well as training our staff on various things, FOIA, whatever, training our different departments on updates in the law and different things of that nature. Then the civil litigation would be $195 per hour. So we'd be paying by the hour for all of our civil litigation like we do today.
He says a flat fee of the through the year, $15,000 per month. And then if there's something that needs special expertise or something, it would be charged at $185 the hour. But he said $15,000, a flat rate fee of $15,000 per month.
Let me see what you were.
What page is it on?
By the RFP for second page. Because if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Howard, didn't you ask him to explain how he's gonna be charging? Because Terry Johnson's the one who explained, so I'm quoting what he said. And he talked about training, he didn't really say too much about the criminal prosecutions, but he referred to the criminal prosecution.
What I got from it, he was saying that anything that had to do with criminal prosecution that he was not able to handle, he will go to a partner. And then that's when 185 fee would occur. But before that fee would be charged, they would come to council to make council aware of the fee, where we will be able to either agree upon that or deny it.
For something extra.
That's what you look at, 185 an hour, yes. That would come back to council first before they can start billing that.
Okay.
And this is where you were asking about the consumer price index as well, right, Councilman Bishop?
Yes, CPI.
Okay, so you're saying they're gonna handle all our litigation for your understanding is for the flat fee of $15,000 a month?
He said that it was
This is
Not all litigation, but whatever he could put up under that 15,000 a month, that's what he would cover.
So anything that involves him, so if litigation involves him and his hourly rate will be billed up under that flat fee.
He said day-to-day ordinances, meetings, special meetings, trainings of the police officers, specialized prep, court things, everything. He said that he could get up under that flat fee. I'm just quoting what I took my.
and that's what I heard. I didn't hear nothing about civil litigation because Terry's a criminal defense attorney. And he partnered with Pentec because they do municipal work and civil litigation. So we need to be
I
crystal
need to be
clear
clear on that then.
on what that includes.
That's even different from what's in there. What's on the,
Get my fine.
We're gonna call them.
Yep.
okay.
Cause I'll wait till he gets back. Cause on that page where it starts off as executive summary, I believe the executive summary speaks to what's in that page you all are referring to. Cause I had the electronic version open right here. And those are items A through N.
With these, I need some papers. That's all she can add. Yeah, this is,
And I'll restate that once the mayor rejoins us.
admission.
Yeah, I was just telling them per this document here, which starts off with executive summary right after the page you were just reviewing. It looks like these items A through N speak to what's included in that cost. Now, this is what's on paper, but of course,
Read it off.
all right, so I'll start right where it says executive summary. Our law firms have been providing quality legal services to clients in Michigan for decades. We are conversant with the Public Employment Relations Act, Open Meetings Act, the Freedom of Information Act, the Home Rule Act, and related statutes applicable to municipalities, including the conduct of council meetings, separation of powers, and municipal forms of government. We would be available to perform such other duties as may be reasonably requested from time to time by the mayor and or the council. As general counsel, we would be responsible for addressing the following services pursuant to a flat fee retainer. All other services, including labor matters, personnel issues, and litigation, for instance, would be compensated at an hourly rate when requested by the city.
Sure.
Item A is preparation for and attendance at all meetings of the council and such other meetings as the mayor, council, or the city administrator may direct, including but not limited to special meetings, study sessions, meetings of the city's ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals, and or the City Planning Commission. Item B, review of all ordinances, contracts, and other written instruments submitted by the council and provisions of opinions as to the legality thereof. Item C, preparation of ordinances and other documents as requested by the council. Item D, confer and counsel with and act as legal advisors to the mayor and council in matters relating to their official duties. Item E, advising any officer or department head of the city in matters relating to their official duties. Item F, filing with the city clerk and council copies of all written opinions given by attorneys in performance of their duties. Item G, review and revise city policies and procedures. Item H, preparation for and appearance in the appropriate courts to prosecute ordinance violations, including prosecuting city matters in the 22nd District Court, excluding appeals from prosecutions. Item I, training for Inkster Police Department on MSP updates and other matters, 16 hours quarterly. Item L, training on Open Meetings Act and Freedom of Information Act. Item M, review FOIA procedures and update for compliance. Item N, update and assure compliance with new municipal related laws and regulations. An example, license to purchase permits. Let me see, and I think, after that, that is, hold on. Yeah, that's where that ends.
Now, unless I'm mistaken again, litigation is excluded. They said that we would pay an hourly rate for employment cases, which is normal litigation, and other matters. Could you read that paragraph again?
Yes, as general counsel, we will be responsible for addressing the following services pursuant to a flat fee retainer. All other services, including labor matters, personnel issues, and litigation, for instance, would be compensated at an hourly rate when requested by the city.
So essentially, I just want us to all understand, I'm not trying to tell you something's wrong with that. That's not what we requested in the RFP. We requested a flat fee billing to handle our litigation. Point being, we're trying to cut down on what we're spending.
Is he talking about specific, I'm sorry, Mayor, for keep interrupting you. Is he talking about specifically for like labor type things or?
Labor is
Or is he talking about just litigation?
he said litigation, for instance. We have 16 litigation cases. We certainly cannot afford to pay someone $180,000 to handle the criminal prosecutions and train us 16 hours a quarter. Right now, we're paying $6,000 a month for criminal prosecutions. Now, let me be honest, we're not getting any training out of that $6,000 a month. Probably, we never have. But we can't pay $180,000 before we start paying for our litigation. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, we simply don't have the money. So if, for instance, this year, we're gonna hit $500,000 in litigation costs. So we would have to put that $500,000 on top of the 180 to show what our legal costs are for the year. So we would be spending actually more money than we're spending now. Does everybody understand that?
Fine.
Because I was confused after talking to Councilwoman Rutledge, but I think the contract actually spells out what they're actually charging us for and gonna charge us extras for. That's what I thought he said that night, but
And they did speak to like preventative matters as well. Like I forget the word. I'm drawing the blanks.
risk management, so, yes,
Thank you. Risk management. I'll be honest, I feel like Huckins didn't really interview well, like I thought. Like, so in the beginning, I'm like, on paper, they, it was great. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, like it makes sense. And then getting up there, I was kind of like, what are you, like every question he asked, I felt like it wasn't a direct answer. I felt like I wasn't really getting what I needed out of each answer. And even when I would rephrase it, I felt like it still wasn't clear where Mr. Johnson got up there. Him and his partner were very clear as to, what's going on. The 4% they were very clear about. Because even for me, and I know they're agreeing to $300,000, but even with inflation right now, like, are you agreeing to do all this for, 4 years at at $300,000, even if our cases don't go down? Like, well, then where does that put us?
well, that puts us in the driver's
Well, if I didn't really like, to be transparent, I kind of felt like he was doing us a favor. And I don't need any more favors. Like, if you're going to come in and do your job, come in and do your job because this is your job. You know what I mean? Not because you're giving back to a community that has no money, because I feel like then that's the kind of work we may get. And we need someone who would be willing to, fight a little bit more for us, even if it does, take you above that pay bracket. Because to be honest, like that's what we all do up here. You know what I mean? We're here every day to crack some out and go above and beyond for this city, but we need people who would be willing to do the same, as well as like speaking to Mr. Johnson, like I know he's done things for the city with of no charge, like training officers and training like auxiliary and just different people like that, without us even, before he even put in for the art, like before he like with art. Yeah. So that's why I personally lean forward Terry Johnson. And I know like maybe we could get a little bit more clarity under certain things, but I'll be honest, I didn't get clarity from Perkins either.
Glad it's him.
Also, the way with Terry Johnson and them, they came in with a clear and concise plan of what they wanted to do and how they could move the city forward. With Perkins, we didn't really get that. You know what I'm saying? With Terry Johnson and them, they have over 30 years of experience in municipalities. So I understand what you're saying about the money, but I don't want to just go with just any attorney just based upon his money. You know what I'm saying? We got to get your bank.
This is something to cut corners.
Right. Let it come to litigation.
All right, I mean, I hear, first of all, I don't take issue with anything you said with respect to how they came off. They came off the way they came off. Shit, that ain't on me. I'm not gonna sit there and try to defend them. With respect to them doing us a favor, I heard both of those firms talk about, I'm gonna give back, I love the community. And Terry more so than Todd because he's from here. I don't take that as a negative to me personally. The fact that he went over and trained people, that's a positive to me. Now, let's be clear, he knew this was coming. I mean, but I'm not saying that was his motivation to help the Inkster Police Department. I'm just saying he helped us, and that's a plus. All I'm saying to y'all, we're not talking about cutting corners. We're about to discuss a budget here. And frankly, we don't have that money That's nowhere, that's double what we have in the budget. What they would call literally double. When I'm saying to you, we don't have it. So I understand what we're saying about spending, not cutting corners, but unfortunately, we're in a situation where the city's about to cut corners because we have to cut corners, or we're gonna lay off people, is one of the two. That we can't pay a law firm $600,000 or $700,000 a year. I thought 500 was crazy. We're at 528 in this budget year. We're gonna hit it.
Yeah.
We're going to hit it on the nose. And we got 2 months left. So,
And could we, maybe table Dangle and go back to, even negotiate, like, would he take a lesser flat fee, maybe 10? Because, I mean, from what I heard, it's kind of like, we don't feel like he's doing enough under that flat fee. So that's how we personally feel. What else? Maybe we ask him to take, a lesser amount.
no, that's not my issue.
Right.
$15,000 a month to do criminal prosecution and training is ridiculous. I'm telling you as a lawyer, that's ridiculous. Let's set that aside. You might think it's okay. It's up to this body. That's crazy. My problem is the not knowing what the litigation is going to cost us. If we're paying $195 an hour, just like we're paying $225 an hour now, we got a $70,000 bill and we have a $50,000 bill. Well, we won't know. The whole point of putting this RFP out is to know what we're going to spend every year, because that's why I asked for a flat fee. We won't know. So we'll know we're paying 180, and that's too much, but that's okay. But the litigation could be another 500,000, like this year. There's no reason to think we're going to have less. We got 16 cases. So we literally don't have the money. And I mean, we'll get through about 6 months, and then I'm going to have to take over as the mayor, because we're not going to have any money left.
But I also too heard Perkins, and maybe I didn't hear it right. He did say that he would still go out, even if he, like, let's say he's not the expert on something, or he had questions on something. Like, that's still going outside of that $300,000, to my understanding, or
Yeah, he said that. He said that. He said if it's something like a tax issue, I don't deal with tax issues. I'm a litigator, just like him. I've never handled a tax case. So if you're going to say, Byron, go out and try this tax case, I'm going to have to get somebody to tell me the tax laws and talk it through with, because that's not my expertise. I think that's what he was saying. I think even Pentex said we wouldn't turn down any case. Now, no one lawyer can know all 38 different subjects of law. It's impossible. So that can happen. Like right now, we're getting bonds for the water meters. Let's just find S&B wasn't handling that. They don't do bond work. So we have to pay somebody else to do it. If we got a unique case, and I don't think we have any unique cases right now, but if we got a unique case, we may not be able to handle it. Then we have to hire somebody else. Right now, we have another law firm handling one of our cases because we have a conflict on one of the police cases. So we got S&B handling part of it for the city, and then we have a different law firm representing the police officer. So we're already paying outside firms for stuff that the city attorney can't do completely. So I put a little extra money in the budget, and when we talk about the budget, for that. Because, one person can't necessarily handle every kind of case. But I think that's with all of the firms. Like, honestly.
I just agree that part.
That's right.
I wasn't impressed by any of them, to be honest with you. What? With $300,000 in Perkins, and I just have a problem. First of all, I have a problem with the 4 years. We should not put them at a 4-year term. We should do it 1 year. Because you don't know what's going to happen. And I'm not going to be voting for locked in, no 4-year, because we never done that, ever. That's one of my things. It should be 1 year, because you just don't know what's going to happen. Secondly, my opinion, all the lawsuits and stuff that we got going on, I think we should have worked with the ones that we had to see whether or not if they would have come down this the 225, because they know all of this. I mean, we jumping into something and we got to bring them up to speed. That may hurt us at the end. I mean, not to say that, we got 16 plus lawsuits. If we had 4 or 5, okay, transition. But to me, 16 is a lot. And if we can't find a resolution on these in here, because like I said, I didn't like none of them. But I would have went with, you know, I don't know. I don't know what would you do? Because I think we can't say that we're gonna go cheaper with less with all the lawsuits that we do have. And we can't sit up here and say that we don't have any money to pay all of this. We've been doing it. We've been mustering it out. And I know it's tough times, but I don't want to, at the lawyer's expense, I don't want to pay something cheaper just because we can't pay for it. You know, I mean, even if we go with this, you're still going to have to do some cuts probably.
I'm cutting, you see, I put the paper in front of me. I'm cutting,
right.
but I've already cut the legal, I almost cut it in half.
Right, but
But what we talking about now,
you cut it in half to what though? I mean, we didn't talk about that.
we're gonna get to it. I mean,
Yeah, but I just don't, I just think that, it's just too much.
So we could potentially, since I hear what you're saying, I really did. I think maybe I need to go back and take what you said into consideration. Maybe looking at research, but I don't feel personally comfortable because, like I said, what you're saying, makes sense. But I like who I like, and I understand what you're saying when it comes to the vote. And so I think I need more clarity from both law firms. So even if we can table this until Monday and I get the chance to ask my questions to get more clarity. But as of now, I don't feel comfortable voting on either, to be honest, or any of them. Neither one, to be honest.
look,
I don't want to.
I don't think that's unreasonable. You can get their contact information, you can call and talk to them. If two people want to get on the line to kill two birds, like you both may want information, all three of you. Nobody over three. You can call whoever you like and get clarification. Call Terry, call whoever you want to call. I don't think that's a problem. Monday, it's only a few days from now, so I don't think that's a problem. So I think that's reasonable. I just want to point out to y'all, just based on what Councilwoman Howard said, just so we can think about this. Two things. A, we're cutting the budget because we got to cut the budget because we're in debt. It has nothing to do necessarily with the law firm doing something wrong to make us be in debt. We just spend a lot of money. I'm not put on the current law firm. B, let's keep in mind, the current law firm, we did meet with them. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Howard wasn't there. And she said maybe we could have negotiated with it. The people who were on the meeting understand the tone of that conversation, how that went, right? There was no negotiating. They quit and they want their money. And we're gonna talk about that on Monday with respect to the bills that they sent us. I think they're ready to walk away. I'm not. They already filed motions to withdraw the act. So we have the luxury to probably wait 5 days, but then we're gonna have to make a decision. Because we have to have counsel.
I think also too, if we could put make it in there for a year, similar to like the DTE contract, right? We put it in for a year with the option to renew, let's say for 3, to see are they really able to handle this load with only $300,000? Because they may come back to us in a year and be like, there is no way. I was doing all this work for you. I'm not doing it for you. So I think a year would give us that.
Oh, they may. You're absolutely right.
To come back and then next budget meeting we can say, look, the attorneys cost us $500,000. Terry, where are you at? Kind of thing, or keep them, or whatever.
Whoever.
Make that decision later, but to potentially satisfy all sides, maybe that's an option.
Well, let's be clear. When we say 4 years, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, I'm gonna say this stuff. It doesn't matter. We can do 1 year. It doesn't matter to me.
Adoption's far out.
If they are not getting compensated for the work they're doing, they're not gonna work for us. They can quit anytime they want to. I mean, we can't make them work for $30,000 a month, $25,000. We can't make it. So you may be very right. He might say, yeah, we can do it. Get in here and be like, I didn't spend twice as much time on this. I'm not with it next year. So I don't think we have that problem. We can say, y'all want to say 1 year renewal? I don't think it.
Other things coming down the pipeline, like our master plan. We're gonna want an attorney to really dive into that and look at that. Now, there may be questions that I may have legally, is it something that we should put in there? Goni, like just different options, especially even with marijuana, like where can we potentially like tweak our ordinance? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there, but I'm saying litigation is the only thing that they're gonna be doing.
Correct.
In city council meetings. And so, like I said, to put something under $300,000 and we're basing it off, let's say like litigation, that's one part of running, you know what I mean, our city, one that we may think them for later that comes to.
It is. It is. I mean, this is a tough situation because most people don't deal with lawyers unless they absolutely need them. You know, obviously I'm sitting up here, I am a lawyer, I get it. So I'm trying to think like you guys. You don't have to talk to a lawyer every day. You don't have to. There's other parts to it, like we just said. The everyday consulting, the questions. We're asking, I'm laughing, and I'm not trying to degrade anybody. We're asking, man, Terry Johnson's been a lawyer for a year or two longer than me. He's primarily done criminal defense. So you're gonna be asking him about zoning, all type of other stuff. Now, at some point, you just have to trust that if he doesn't know, he's gonna go do the research. And I think he will. I'm not even tripping. You don't have to know everything off the top of your head. He's thorough, he's professional. He's not going to just tell you something crazy and it not be true. But well, whoever we choose, they're gonna have their strengths and weaknesses, and hopefully they're professional enough to go figure out what the answer is and give us good advice. And they can look at the master plan. Last time we did it, I don't know if the attorneys, I'm sure, reviewed it. They didn't really add anything to it.
But
Just to make sure everything is cool, you know, we're not doing anything we shouldn't be doing. Also, the people we paying to do the master plan, they've done a million of them. You know what I mean? So if we went over the edge or did something once, it would pop out. It would be, I think we would be able to figure that out. But okay, I mean, I encourage, if you guys talk to any of the three farms,
you know, I meet their lineup because even the lineup that I brought for Perkins, like the two people that brought, like, I don't know the older gentleman's name, but
Mr. something.
right. But he was speaking a lot to what was it, like labor,
Labor-ish.
and you don't have a lot of labor.
Yes, we do.
And so,
Yes, we do.
I mean, but
You guys don't see it. We got to remember, we have 5 bargaining units, collective bargaining agreements. You have to negotiate with them. We have grievance. When he was talking about grievances and stuff, you guys never see that stuff. Like the grievance process, we have them all the time. I mean, it's stuff flowing through my office all the time. It never gets to you.
well, I think that's like transparency then, right? When it comes to when we're hiring, it's been such a like focus on litigation, and maybe we talk about like we're not here day to day. You know what I mean? We all have other jobs. And so like talking about that, because on our cases that we see, there isn't, you know, really a reason for him to be there.
You only see litigation.
Exactly. But if you're telling me like, nah, like we have, you know, union bargaining X, Y, and Z,
Mhm.
that's great. That's something to consider. But to me, from the knowledge that I hold today or in that moment, I'm like, why is he here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do I, like, you know what I mean? Why him? And when we need someone who's
I don't want to see.
working with day to day.
It varies. You probably have many employment matters. We have litigation cases. I mean, literally. Whenever an employee feels like he's been wrong, he files a grievance. Step 1 to step 2 to step 3. Then you go to arbitration. And that's not well, it is litigation, but it's not in front of a court. It's in front of an arbitrator. We have those cases all the time. We just never talk about it. So when we go in closed session, the only thing they talk about is the civil litigation because they need approvals from you guys. Arbitration, you go, you argue, the arbitrator makes a decision, it is what it is. So we don't have to discuss anything as a body. But we have, trust me.
So I think that just goes back to my point, like to make a proper decision, to feel good about voting. And I can only speak for me on one vote, right? So if you all decide to vote today, then I'll also agree with that. But like for me, I would rather wait. So even I can pick your brain as to like what are the things that the city needs from their attorney as well. Because like I said, we only see what we see.
And we need somebody experienced. As we stand right now, David Jones had 29 years of experience. Whether I like him personally or not is irrelevant. He had experience. He was a professional. He had experience. He's handled a lot of different cases. Right now, our city attorney has 4 years experience. And we're paying $225 an hour. And I'm not saying $225 that's normal. I mean, I'm not tripping. But we can't have an attorney with 4 years experience. That's what I'm saying, Chief. We've had somebody with decades of experience. And, you know, I can sit here and say we paid too much because I think we got tricked last year. Forget about all that. We got to have somebody with some experience. And both those other two firms have experience, plenty. Pentak is older than me. He came out in the 70s, I think. So he's very professional, very competent. I've had cases with their firm. They're professional. Todd Perkins, you have to do your own research. I went to school with him, so I'm trying to cut the personal out of it. We're friendly. It's not like I eat dinner over his house, but I've known him for 30 years. 30 years. He's a prominent attorney. Let's not take anything away from him. You Google him, his cases will pop up. He's no Rudy Poo. You know, I mean, he's a prominent attorney. Out of all the attorneys we've seen, he's the most prominent. Now, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like you said, what do we need and what can they do for us? I need somebody, I've been saying this for years, who ain't scared to try a case. We ain't tried a case in 12, 13 years.
Well, that's the man, but he, but that's, yeah, well, Mr. Just back, but he does, the attorneys does ask us what we want. That's what, it wasn't attorneys, it was what the council want.
Sure.
So when you say try, you know, if we tell him to go out here and try everything, he gonna do that. But he worked off the discretion of council.
Well, I'm not really casting aversions on our former city.
Right, no, I'm just saying, but.
Sort of. I mean, the attorneys, you go to them for advice. And when I've been in the room many times, I recommend we settle this case because we have a chance of going to trial and losing or something bad. But that's happened for 12, 13 years. And sometimes you got to fight. Like with these marijuana cases, we got to win one of these.
Right, but if
or we're going to lose them all.
Right, but if the council says, no, we don't want to spend no more money, then that's the discretion of the council.
But if you go into it, we have to, and that's why I went to a flat fee agreement, to take that off the table. And everybody didn't reply. If you look at it from a financial standpoint, you should settle every case. Every single case, the moment it's filed. Because it costs money. See what I'm saying? Some of them are worse than others, but they all cost money. You have to look at it to like, look, we got to win one of these. Because if we lose this or settle this, there's going to be 5 more.
Well, I think that's the point that Mr. Johnson's farm was making, that you do have to fight cases.
He said
Otherwise,
that.
people keep saying.
I agree with him.
Said that.
I agree. Mr. Mayor.
Just regards, because I had jotted down, you know, what are we looking at as far as what our decision is based off of? Is it based off of coverage or cost, or is it a balance in between the two? And then I know someone down on the end, I can't remember who, one of our colleagues had mentioned about maybe seeing what he would say, I guess if we, let me just put it this way. If we modified the language or enhanced it on the RFP of which he presented to us. I know in some of the RFPs, the attorney firm said they were willing to negotiate X, Y, and Z, but I didn't see that in his, but I guess that could be something. But with regards to what Councilwoman Scott has said.
Same difference.
My apologies. When you talked about like the ordinance, well, we talked about ordinances and having legal at the master plan meetings. Those meetings, which are normally public and there's multiple of them, the way I guess we should go, which we hadn't sometimes in the past, and they do this at the state as well, ordinances or bills. Once the bill is drafted by the elected body, it goes to the legal department. And then that's when they do the strikeouts, corrections, or enhancements to protect the city and make their recommendations. Now, we went through this where, as council, we might have had our own recommendations for ordinance, and then other council or the majority went a different way and moved forward with it. And then there were loopholes in all the language, and there's nothing we could do about it except try to fix it on the back end. And then we have these litigations.
Defend these cases. That's
Defend the cases.
You know.
And then it's a thing where when we're out in the general public, I was in the dentist's office in Farmington Hills. And the lady walked out the back and said, Chisholm. I said, yes, Sheila, I knew that was you. I need to talk to you for a second. And it's time for me to get my cleaner. And she wanted to know about the marijuana business license from December 2020. And I had to stand there, you know, and explain it to her how the vote was, how it was split, how it got pushed through, and it opened up. And so, and legal just did based off of whatever the majority had and not basically what we had in open discussions when it came down to drafting that ordinance. So just in the capacity of saving money, that is our job to have these public hearings and make the changes to it and then have legal do the final clean version and present us all with a copy, both on the internet and in person. So we're not all running around saying, well, what is the final version? Also, with the grievances, I know you were talking about the transparency portion. It should be on the bills. Like when you actually flip through the packet, it's like that big under, I guess, potentially maybe that flat rate. I'm not exactly sure. But it should be on there. And then the other thing is, if every single grievance came to the mayor's office and then, came to us, that would be a matter we'd have to take up every other week, at the council meetings versus it just coming, because it might be something, for instance, and I'm going to use a school system, for instance, that an employee may say X, Y, and Z, and the principal defers it to the HR department, and they have legal grounds right there to say, nope, for instance, expulsions. When they get ready to move to expulsion, they alert central office, and that's it. Unless that student's family appeals it, because I've sat in an expulsion hearing before, just randomly went to a board meeting, and that's where they appealed it, and the board upheld the decision of the principal. But before that, it wasn't even anything that really came before the board to make a decision on, because that's just something that's handled at that particular administrator's level. They have that power.
Right.
I just wanted to point that out. I understand what you were saying about the transparency portion of grievance.
I'm not trying to say that I want everything to come to me. I don't. You know what I mean? Like, this is your full-time job. This is not what I'm doing. However, I'm saying more so, like, if you want, like, if we didn't, so before we got here today, right? If you would have kind of even sat down or emailed or, in about 3 and 3 or whatever, kind of talk about the scope of what the city needs. I'm not saying that we should vote on it or every meeting, but if we're going into hiring an attorney, so I would like to know that information, because then later down the line, I might be like, well, Perkins hacked this. And I'm like, well, you didn't tell me that was something that we needed, right? Like, that hasn't been the focus. I only know what I know, if that makes sense. And so
I do.
The decision based off of what was presented in front of me Monday, and then any research that I've done on the back end as well. You know what I mean?
I think Councilwoman.
And then even speaking to the ordinance, and how you're saying well, we drafted and, we go to them kind of after the fact. That's why I did the risk assessment part of Terry Johnson, and they really honed in on that, because that's why we get into so much trouble now, is because we don't consult the people that we need to consult before making these decisions. And then we're not making educated decisions, which is why it comes back to my point.
Right.
I want some more time so I can talk to people, like yourself and the attorneys, so I can make the most educated decision possible.
You absolutely.
I just want to hash that up. Actually, it's not right. When you're talking about risk assessment is just, where is the city liable? If we have a cracked step, then somebody could trip, fall, and hurt themselves. If we're doing something that could cause litigation later. The problems we're having right now, especially with the marijuana ordinance, we got legal counsel. I watched the meeting. The legal counsel suggests to do exactly what we did. And we have 4 lawsuits.
Well, we're not just talking about marijuana, because we got more than.
I'm just giving you an example. But I'm giving you, I'm giving you, I said to you that.
Mistakes on that litigation list that's been made by the past.
I mean, we're paying
administration that we're still paying for today, because he didn't use, I'm sorry, I have to say specific names, but because, you know what I mean? The attorney was not used in the first place before firing someone, or, you know what I mean?
You're right.
That's why it's so much bigger than just little points that we're poking holes in. So we got to look at that bigger picture.
And you absolutely right. And I didn't hear Mr. Perkins really say anything.
No, he did.
To that.
He did.
And
listen, let me co-sign what you said to me earlier, and I agree with you. It seemed fluffy. Now, I know him, so he wasn't talking to me. You know what I'm saying? I was letting y'all answer your questions and do your thing. It was fluffy. And I hope you guys have another conversation with him. Maybe he'll do better, maybe he won't. Whatever. I mean, that's on y'all. Maybe he can give you what you're looking for. Because it was here when you were trying to get it here. I get you. And the second group was here.
Yeah. That's true.
Mr. Mayor,
Mhm.
I just wanted to say to my colleagues too, and I don't know how many you all have sat through, but I've sat through a myriad of endorsement screenings before, and the UAW is one of the most extensive ones, right? It's about 10 tables with anywhere from 5 to 8 people, and they're playing round robin. It's like being in front of an oversight committee and you're being hammered. And you're literally sitting at the table by yourself, and they're asking all these different questions. And one, I don't know if you all heard me, but I assume Mr. Perkins heard me when I told the mayor, I said, we're at 27 minutes. And he said, I'm sorry, and he stopped.
Yep.
And because that's something we have to, check them on, any person that we're interviewing, check them on that so we can continue being efficient. And then the second thing too is I told former Councilwoman Sandra Wiley, when I was at the UAW hall and they asked me a question, I answered it and I got to going. Ms. Cash cut me off. It says, so you did or you didn't? Just like that. And I said, I apologize, I didn't. They said, thank you, and moved on. And I was like, wow, they got me. I'm not getting this endorsement. But it went through because the multiple amount of questions they asked, everybody was, satisfied. And the reason I also say kind of sort of treat it like an oversight committee hearing or an endorsement committee, endorsement screening is because sometimes those endorsements go out and you think this group endorsed this candidate, but you don't necessarily know the work they've done because based off of what the endorsement committee released to the public or based off of your own relationship with them, so on and so forth. So yeah, sometimes the things before it does seem like fluff and you do have to do a follow-up, a second or
To like, because the mayor knows him personally, we have this insight, right? If I walked into a job interview and the person knows me from paper and what I present to them in their face, that's what I have to go on. So like I said, I hear you all and like I said, that's why I'm just asking for more time, but I was not impressed. And I did feel like it was a lot of fluff and this city doesn't need any more fluff. We need, what can you do for us? Why are you here? And under this $300,000 flat fee, what can you really do for us? Because we know that's nothing. We know that's almost insulting to even ask you to do at his level of experience.
You can't say that part. I think you should ask him just what you just said. And feel free. Well, not just negotiate. Mr. Johnson, RFP asked for a flat fee. You gave us an hourly fee. What can you do this on a flat fee basis? What can you do? We need to know, we need some certain. I don't care if it's a little bit more. We just need to know where we at. I can pay a little extra $50,000 over one firm over another if we know is being capped at that point and we're comfortable with that service we think we're gonna get. So feel free, ask, put it to him. Look, man, you talked the other day talking nonsense. Look,
I just want to make it clear, it's not about the attorney for you. It's just you were like, I need going into this budget. I'm about to get into that too. You want to be able to put a closest possible number on this line item to be able to say we're going to pay. Let's say even if it's $400,000, because that's still less than 600, like you're saying, for what they offered us. If they can say that, then it's like okay, then we're cool.
no, we're not cool. We're laying off somebody. I mean, let me be clear. Everything we do, no, we're not. In this budget, we're not laying off anybody.
Well,
But if we have to pay $100,000 more, and if we got to do it, we got to do it. Don't get me wrong. Somebody's going home because we don't have the money. I'm not one of those people who gonna act like we'll just keep spending and hope that it all works out. I don't run my finances that way. I'm gonna spend what I have. If I don't have it, I'm not gonna spend it. Somebody going home. That's all it is,
I
too.
think that's fair to say, but I think when it comes to, like, for example, clerk and attorney are the only real things that we have a say so because they are that important in the city. You know what I mean? And so for me, I don't want to look back and say, dang, like we should have, went another way, or dang, like we kind of shot ourselves in the foot because they weren't able to do what they ultimately agreed upon. You know what I mean? So for me, like, I understand what you're saying and like, I don't ever want to lay anybody off, but this isn't also a light decision where for me, I'm like, if it gets us the best representation, because right now we have 16 cases. We haven't settled any. We're still in litigation with them. So that number is going to go up regardless. But I want to make sure that whoever's in front of us, who's ever representing us, is the person to do it, So like, I hear what you're saying, like on that 400, whatever, like line item, or someone has to lay off, but someone has to be laid off if we keep in 16 cases and doing what we're doing.
Well, that's the point.
Have to settle.
You do. I think you do understand. That's the point of me going to a flat fee. I didn't do this because it makes me happy. I'm making the same amount of money either way. I'm saying if we have a flat fee, we know what we're paying every year. That's it. Now, we don't want lousy representation either. I mean, let me say this to y'all. I know all three of the people we interviewed. They're all professional, competent attorneys. Some have more experience than others in municipal work. And you heard that. So I don't have to try to convince you of that. You saw it. They talked about it. It was on their paperwork. That's all. We didn't interview anybody who's not competent. Right. I know them all three personally. That might be part of the reason they even applied. Most law firms like flat fee. How are we supposed to know? How are we supposed to guess what we doing?
And that's the high part. That's the high.
But you
fee rate.
So it's gonna like, how does that work out if we're
Right.
well, don't put it. Highland Park is broke. I mean,
We are too.
but we need to understand. We broke, but we ain't Highland Park. I've been in receivership for 25 years. We try not to be in receivership. That's the whole point.
But I don't, Mr. Chair, I think that this is, since I've been on council, I think this has been the most we have gotten, maybe.
No, we've had cases like this.
But this didn't cost us as much as it's costing us now, because here's the thing. We can have that attorney do this, but if the other attorney keeps appealing and going back on, this is where the money is coming in at. It ain't because of, the $225 flat, hourly rate. If the other attorneys keep coming back, we have to go. This is where the money is coming in at. It ain't necessarily so.
That's why I went to a flat fee.
Right, but but I don't know, but at the same time, in budgeting, and I know we are strapped for cash, but that's an educated guess because you don't know what's going to be ahead of us, foreseen. We can, you know what I'm saying? You don't know. That's why it's an educated guess on what they're going to spend. But I don't know.
But Councilwoman Howard, it's only an educated guess if it's hourly. And that's what if y'all choose Terry Jones, I ain't got no issue with that. They're competent. My issue is $195 per hour is 16 cases. That's what my issue is. However, the 3 people who interviewed,
It's 185.
185, but it's open-ended, meaning that may end up being 400,000, 500,000, 600. I don't know. I can't run the city financially with not knowing. We had 1.1 million in the whole legal budget last year. Well, come on now. Half of that was in attorney's fees, and other half will be judgments and stuff like that. We ain't talking about judgment if we lose or we have to put someone on the tax roll. So
If we go through the budget, that's another reason why I want to abstain from voting tonight, just because when we go through the budget, I think one, we'll have a better understanding. 2, I do have questions, like 1 year, it did look like, let's say we paid the $400,000, maybe it could have been like other 400 on just whatever else. That's just a number, but you know what I mean? Like whatever.
It's always more.
For me, I'm like,
It's always more.
let's talk about the real numbers before, because right now for me, it's like, we're gonna have to lay someone off or show me, you know what I mean? Show me so I can connect to that decision and be either okay or not okay with making that decision. Because right now it's just kind of like you taking your word at the fact that, you know what I mean? That we're gonna be in financial stuff. I want to see it,
You can see it in the next audit. but unfortunately, we got to pass the budget before we get the audit. Darren, let's start the budget conversation.
We need to table this.
Well, 2 million.
It's not floor.
It was just a motion to discuss. We discussed it, so we good. We didn't have to take action. We'll put it on the agenda for Monday, and hopefully we'll get some additional, hopefully each individual council person, if they want additional information, will get it. We have to make a call.
Question,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. The insurance, I know you mentioned something about the lawsuits and going on property taxes. We do still have insurance, correct?
The $2 million deductible.
The $2 million, but that is still on the side. You haven't reached that $2 million deductible.
Oh, we're essentially, we're self-insured. Until we hit the $2 million mark, we pay everything up to $2 million.
Gotcha.
So we have no insurance
Yeah, I understand.
unless we get a $15 million.
So we haven't reached that yet?
No, it doesn't work like your medical deductible. I mean, each case.
Mm-hmm.
If we get a case in a verdict for $4 million, the first 2 we have to pay, and then insurance picks up the rest.
Correct.
So we'll never hit it unless we have a big. We got one case, $180 million against Kevin Harrington.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we win that case, but
Kevin Harrington?
yeah, and George Clark.
Oh,
I mean, so if they win, it's going to be more than $2 million.
thank you.
But we're on the hook for the first 2 for every case.
I got it.
Thank you.
Oh, Liz, did you talk to any of them? Ask them about the money part.
Thank you.
Find out what our options are.
Y'all wait till me.
So I would ask too, Mr. Mayor, once she finds that information out or whoever finds it out, can you ask them to send that to either all of us or the clerk at least, and you and the
Or
mayor?
to you, and you can forward to us. So
That way we have the documentation to hold anybody accountable for it.
that's what we.
I'm glad you brought up insurance too, because I did, when we get to talking about anybody budget who drives a city vehicle. Just as far as risk management, defensive driving, and self-insured stuff.
What are you saying?
No. I didn't say that. See, y'all cut me off.
You kind of sound like that.
No. When I worked for AT&T, because I drove a company vehicle, yearly and annually, we had to do risk management defensive driving. And that was to lessen motor vehicle incidents. So that was anybody in the organization. That was not just certain employees and stuff like that.
I didn't have it. I can't answer that question for you quickly.
You still got time?
HR so we did meet with the insurance company.
Oh, okay.
And we are looking at, but at the behest of the mayor, we are looking at putting the safety committee back together. And that's, you got ideas, you can kick them around. That stuff we will be talking.
Oh, great, because
I know what you say.
I was one that had to be subjected to it for 12 years straight. So,
And I know our police use,
okay.
they drive, I'm just casual.
And I just rode with some employees before in their own personal cars, and I see how they drive. So, all right.
So it's in the pipe. The safety committee is, always have that.
Well, that answers that then. Saves us some time. Thank you, Jerome. 30 seconds. Safety committee. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Carey.
I got to know. Lead us out of the wilderness, please.
Get into the abyss.
So, just want to kind of get everyone on the same page here. We did send around a copy of the mayor's recommended budget for general fund, Fund 101. We provided a hard copy of that in the binders that I just passed out. As we complete the other funds, we'll just update your binders. We've got sections, so we're going to be adding to those binders as we move forward. Tonight, we wanted to again focus on the general fund and wanted to start with kind of just like a big picture view of where we are financially in terms of the overall budget and what's going on financially. We did discuss some of that on Monday. But just wanted to review some of the key things, not only for overall for the city financially, but specifically for this year's recommended budget from the mayor. As obviously, Inkster is the city's facing some fiscal challenges. We've been dealing with those things for several fiscal years. The situation is, situation has not changed. We are really just dealing with the reality of trying to deal with a structural deficit. And when I say structural deficit, our annual revenues are not meeting our current expense structure. In order, the way in which the city is currently running, in terms of all of our obligations and everything, the revenues that we generate just can't support. It's not sustainable. We've been saying that for several years. The city received a couple $1 million in funding from the federal government a year or two ago related to the COVID funding programs. That provided somewhat of a, needed injection, but that's a one-time boost, if you will. This year, the recommended budget for general fund has a deficit of about $180,000. On paper. That's kind of what we project out. But the thing that we really got to understand is that there are a significant amount of one-time revenues that are in this budget, over $1 million, about $1.3 million in one-time revenues. That's coming from grants that had not been collected in prior years. So if we look at, again, just the bottom line number, we're dealing with a deficit of $180,000. But again, we have $1 million in revenues for this year, for this budget, this recommended budget for next fiscal year. That $1.2, $1.3 million are us collecting on reimbursements for things that have already been paid out. We can't expect that money in the future. So, we just got to keep in mind, if we take the deficit that's on the books for the recommended budget and those one-time revenues, we're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of almost $1.5 million in terms of the funding gap. Looking at the budget, we made some reductions, but by and large, we kept the current staffing levels in our two largest areas of expenses are, and really our two largest areas of our from a service delivery standpoint for general fund, that's police and fire. So we maintain those staffing levels. There are some contractual increases with some of the union members that are in there. And from a year-to-year standpoint, due to some vacancies in there, there's some savings that have occurred within those departments leading toward the end of this fiscal year. But we just budgeted with the assumption that all positions would be filled starting July 1 and would be filled the entire year. From a practical standpoint, that's really never the case, but that's what we included in the budget. That's kind of the starting point. And so wanted to, really put the focus on, again, when we talk about general fund, where the money is going, what the need, where the need is, how we're funding it. When we talk about general fund, we're talking about police and fire in terms of the service delivery. Obviously, we've got a lot of administrative costs that are in there in terms of the work that goes on, technically within City Hall. But it's again, it's kind of a budget that's really just looking to maintain the current staffing structure. And it's really a starting point for us to really figure out how we can reduce the cost structure and give us an opportunity to grow the revenue structure. Because that's really, from a practical standpoint, it's going to be tough to cut $1 million out of the budget. That's really hard thing to do without significantly impacting the delivery of services. So from my vantage point, and I think, a number of people have kind of shared this message with you, it's really trying to figure out how we can expand the revenues within the city. And that's not, an easy thing to do. We can't wave a magic wand and do that. But that's really the reality of where it's at. Again, this budget, we do get the benefit of a number of grants that just weren't being collected. And as we go through the budget, we can get into the specifics of those. And then just trying to deal with some of the increased costs that are either contracted or that we're just experiencing from just general operations. The mayor shared with you some of the savings that he pinpointed and identified, and we certainly rolled those into the recommended budget. But by and large, again, I think it's the numbers may be a little bit different, but the underlying message is still the same. We've got a structural issue, and we've got to look at some creative ways in which that for us to address it. I mentioned, and we'll go through some of this in detail, mentioned the public safety, specifically when we look at pension costs. We're budgeting $1.5 million for that for this fiscal year. That's several $100,000 higher than what we had last year. And we're continuing to have general fund subsidies. That's another big item. We're having to subsidize to the tune of about $800,000. We're having to put subsidies to fund some debt service. So those are things that are still, things that burdens that the general fund is having to carry and having to incur. And oftentimes there's not a lot that we can do to avoid those costs. So just wanted to kind of give that overview, and then we can start at the beginning and work our way through the general fund budget and proceed from there. Okay, so everyone can understand we're starting with the general fund budget is right on in tab 1. I just like to start at page number 1. We've got 10 pages. Again, this is our general fund. We begin with the section of covering all of our revenues. There are 5 columns that are listed with numbers, starting from the column, and I'm going to go from left to right. Just give a brief explanation of these columns. The first column is 22-23 activity, and that's really all the numbers from last fiscal year. And that's there just to kind of give you an idea of what occurred last fiscal year compared to this fiscal year and what's in the requested budget for next fiscal year. So that's column 1. Column 2 is going to be the amended budget for the current fiscal year, or FY24. Column 3 is the activity that we show on the books for the first 6 months. So this goes through 12/31/23. That date is really just a function of the charter and state law. That's kind of why we are not showing numbers more recent than that. The charter and state laws specifies showing the activity through 12/31. And so that's the third column. Column number 4 is going to be the projected activity for this fiscal year. So that's really taking the activity that we have in the books and trying to project out what the what the entire fiscal year is going to look like. Again, we're having to do some estimates for April, May, June, what have you. But that column number 4 is designed to give you an idea of what the numbers for the entire fiscal year are projecting out at. As we discussed on Monday, we're at somewhat of a disadvantage compared to where we normally are because a lot of the information is just not either current or it's not accurate. That's not accurate in the sense that the numbers are not wrong. They're just, we don't feel that they're been completely accurate in terms of the categories that they're in. So there's going to be a number of situations where we got to reclassify items from one expense account to the other. But, that limited our ability to really, completely put together what I would consider to be a really comprehensive projected. So we did the best we could based on the information that was available. Next is there's 6 columns. Next is going to be the requested budget for 24-25. This is the numbers that were requested from the department heads. And we take those requests from each department, we compile them and put them into the requested budget. And as you'll see, there was over $1 million in terms of the deficit or the excess request from an expense standpoint over revenues. But that's that second to last column is the requested budget. That's the numbers we get from the department heads. And then finally, the last column on your right, where we're going to be focusing in on for our deliberations is going to be the recommended budget. And that's the mayor's recommended budget. These are the numbers, based upon the information that we had from the department heads, the information that we had available in trying to make some decisions and compile these numbers here. So, like to start with starting with the column on the far right, the recommended budget. We, begin with our on our revenues. Our first category is our property taxes, and we're using a estimate for property taxes of just a little bit under $4.1 million, right at $4.08 million, a little bit above where we were last year. We're trying to be really, trying to be as accurate. I don't want to say conservative, but we're trying not to overinflate any of these numbers as best we can. And so we've, made that projection there. It's a modest increase over this year, where we estimate where we expect to be at the end of the fiscal year. But that's kind of our top line number for property taxes. Going down, you'll see some various numbers when we start talking about the capture districts. And again, for Brownfield and Tifa, that's really a source of one of the subsidies that the general fund is having to do, because generally we would hope for more from these capture districts, but for years they haven't been due to some of the dynamics involved in the city's property tax situation. So due to some of the debt that's tied to these capture districts, we're having to subsidize out of the general fund, and we'll see that later on in the budget. Moving on down, you see what we call a pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, and pilot contractual. That's for various real estate developments in the city that are generally going to be some type of nonprofit or non-tax entity. We have pilots in place to cover those, and those do provide some revenue to the city in exchange for the services that these entities receive. We have the, and I'm just, pointing out things, and if you have any more questions, just stop me. We have the marijuana excise tax, which is a fairly new revenue stream for the city. This year, we're using, for this budget, we're using an estimate of $400,000. We have received about $356,000 for the current fiscal year, so we're projecting some increased activity there. And then we get down to one of the items that I mentioned, and that's on the grant reimbursement. So we've got several grants, not only in general fund, but in other funds that the city has had for a number of years where we have not been filing for a request. One of them is the city's COPS grant. It was a 3-year grant. I believe it's expected to cover the cost of 6 police officers. And up until this point, we've only collected for approximately 1 year. And so we expect that we'll be able to collect on years 2 and 3 next fiscal year, roughly, $470,000, $480,000 a year. And so that'll allow us to get reimbursed to the tune of $950,000. That's, again, one of those one-time events that I talked about. It's going to have a positive effect on the budget, but it's not something that can necessarily be reoccurring. Generally, if we, that grant is expected to expire at the end of this fiscal year. But if we do get an extension, there's going to be some additional expenses that are going to, basically be offset in the future. Same thing with the state grant. We know that there's some monies that the state has. We've requested from the state for reimbursements. Again, these are overdue reimbursement payments that we're waiting from the state. The timing of that, in all likelihood, can be delayed until next fiscal year because this is tied to us getting our audit completed. So that's, those 2 items are really significant. They're one-time items, but they're really significant for next year because they're going to really provide, I think, that one-time benefit that's going to really lessen the need for making some really drastic cuts going forward. Then the next item I would point out is our revenue sharing. Estimates right now from the state have it at about $4.7 million. The current fiscal year, we were right at about $4.4 million. But again, with the audit, we have not collected on all of that $4.4 million, again, tied to the audit. So hopefully we'll be getting those funds sometime in the June, July, August timeframe. Next item, just kind of moving down, I would want to point out we have administrative charges or administration charges. And just so everyone is clear on that, the purposes of those charges is that the general fund incurs a number of costs that are paid out of general fund, but it's for services and resources that all of the funds share in. And in an effort to collect on and share those costs, we charge administrative charges to the various funds. For a number of years, those charges have not changed. And what we've recommended for this budget is to increase each of the charges that are being charged to these funds by 10%. So you'll see that those numbers are up over prior years due to us adding an additional 10% to reflect the increase in expenses and costs that the general fund has been incurring over the last several years that have not been passed along to these various funds. We did not include the two funds were not included in this. One was Parks and Rec. We did not increase their administrative charge. And then the other was the TIFA, because TIFA is subsidized by the general fund. It's really it's not any benefit. We would just basically we're charging ourselves with that there. So that is one major change that we're making here. Again, we're increasing those administrative charges, and that's generating some additional revenue for the general fund. I think the next items are pretty straightforward. Moving down, we have a reimbursement that we get from Inkster Housing for police services over there. Not much is changing with many of these fees here. You can see those numbers, and I'll just continue moving down. And that's really the main items. The last items I would point out are sale of land. We've got a estimate for sale of land, really two estimates that are in there. One is for the city's first right of refusal program. We've got, we put in a cost of $400,000. You'll see that when we get to the expense side of the budget. We have revenue projected of $475,000. So essentially, we're saying we're going to buy those right of first refusal properties for $400,000, estimating 75 houses. We charge a $1,000 administrative fee, and so that would generate an additional $75,000. So paying $400,000 to the county for in terms of what we're estimating right now, and then we, based on the estimates, we would expect to get $475,000. And then on top of that, we've got $200,000 for our estimate for sale of land outside of the first right of refusal program, or NSP. I think it's NSP the NSP program. So that is that's going to be the first page of the revenues. I just want to stop and see if there's any questions, any comments, any requests for explanations on what we've covered thus far.
Time is mentioned. But first open, you were talking about grants that were not conducted.
Yes.
And how many grants was that, and how many years was that?
There's several grants. I don't have the exact number. I can get that information for you, Councilwoman. But we there's two groups. One is the COPS grant that I mentioned. That's at the federal level. There's another federal level grant. That one I don't think is really much behind. The COPS grant, that one is, at least a year behind, I would say.
Is this something that they have to apply for every year?
Yes, yeah. So no, we don't have to apply for it every year. It was awarded, and it was awarded for 3 years.
Okay, but we didn't follow through.
We just haven't been getting the reimbursements. We haven't been applying. We haven't been requesting the reimbursements. So we got awarded a 3-year grant, and so the grant was awarded. We were eligible. We've got the expenses. We just got to get the information processed. And so over the last few months, as the administration's been going through, looking at where we're administratively behind, that was one of the things that has been identified. We're now working. Some of it is you got to have certain registrations for individuals to file that. And so some of our newer team members have been going into the federal system, getting those required registrations and whatnot. But that's one where we're at least a year behind in terms of the, probably more than a year behind, because this goes back to last fiscal year.
Whose responsibility was to file for those grants?
I wasn't around.
I'm just question. Okay.
Obviously, it's the past administration.
Okay.
All these grants are reimbursement grants. So when we spend the money and we have the grant, you have to fill out a form to request the money back from either the state or the federal government. They just won't request any of the reimbursements. So whatever.
Which administration?
The last administration.
You said the mayor is supposed to do that, or
Treasurer, the mayor, whoever. I mean, the mayor doesn't actually do it, but the.
Treasurer.
Yeah.
And I mean, and Councilwoman, I would say it's a combination. It's, you know, I know that you know, generally you've got somebody within the, you know, mayor's on the mayor's team is working. They have, you know, a point person over at the police department that usually works with this, and certainly the treasurer and the, you know, the finance department is, you know, clearly one of the key points of responsibility there. So, you know, for whatever reason, that just wasn't occurring as it could have been, it should have been. So that's one grant, and then we have several what's referred to as FDCVT grants, financially distressed cities, townships, and villages, and it's probably 4, maybe 5 of those that we've got a couple fire hydrant grants. We've got one for the water system. There was a grant that was given for police cameras. That's 4. There may have been another one. So there's over $1 million, probably close to 1.4, $1.5 million that we've, you know, since the new administration has come in, the administration's been getting caught up on those. We've gotten that paperwork to the state. I think we're about probably 95% completed, if not all done. But of that 1.4, 1.5 million, about $1 million of that is going back to the water system. And then 450,000 we expect to come back to general fund. So that goes back, you know, a few years. Again, similar situation where we either did not file for the reimbursement, or we filed and the state asked for some additional information and we didn't complete the get the process completed.
The police cameras, are these for the streets or are these body cams? What kind?
These, I believe, are for the streets.
Street
Nah, they're for,
Yeah.
for crime.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Bivens, was that the grants? I'm sorry, were those the cameras that were applied for through the state of Michigan?
Yeah, they came from, like you said, the FTD.
That's from the state. That's not from the federal.
That's from this thing.
No, so yeah, so this one I'm referring to was for a grant that was received from the state.
Got you. Okay.
And you know, the grant that they provide every year for cities that have been.
Part of 2 million that the state and all that been there for helping for distressed community.
Got you. Okay. And I remember the acronym.
Or in the free years to spend the money and how it's.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question too. This is kind of like what I was referring to, like last meeting. I got kind of laughed at about it, but when we're talking about the grants, as someone who actively works on grants as well, I just know like turnover can result into like balls being dropped.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, like, are we doing something like on our end at the city level just to kind of make sure? So you do still have that high turnover.
For sure.
To just kind of make sure like it's a specific department's job, or does everybody kind of like manage their own grants in each department? Like,
I think it's certainly those things that you mentioned. I think it's a couple of things. One, I think is having a process in place, and you know, just from what I think we've been able to gather, I think there was just a process breakdown, because a process can be lasting beyond the individuals. And so to the extent that, you know, I think the city's got to get that process back in place. So not only are we going through getting the grants, the reimbursements done, but we're getting the process back in place. And when a grant is awarded, there should be certain steps that are followed. And that's the process that we're talking about. So even if someone leaves, they can still come in and understand what the process is, as well as leaving documentation about what's going on. I mean, in many instances, that information is just not, you know, readily available. And so that to me can't just be blamed on turnover. That is an operational, that's just an operational breakdown. So we certainly, you know, and I think there are a number of different instances about that, but we certainly have got to get a workable process back in place, so that even if there is turnovers, whoever comes in is able to pick up and keep it moving forward.
And just, he had processors, but if you don't follow them, and then you don't have to, if people change, let's say you stop following them, and then the people change, there's no institutional knowledge. So it's just the Wild Wild West. And then we get in a situation with reimbursement. Why would you not? If you don't do anything else, you process a reimbursement, right? I mean, if that's the only thing you did all year, you process the reimbursement. But
Yeah, that's why I was like, how do we make?
how did you mess that up?
You know what you pay? Yeah.
Well, I think like 14 people left, so.
Yeah, it was fine. But even then,
Yeah, the tunnel.
you would think that, I mean, but be consistent at the time. Well, and it's good to know that the past administration had a process. Like, we don't have to make a process. You just kind of
Follow it.
yeah, exactly. Like, instate the process. So yeah, that was like my, like, how, nah, like, like, can you just put it in a drawer somewhere?
What? Law.
Thank you.
Oh, one more thing, the rental revenue, is that from the complex?
No, that
You mean-
that is, and I don't think we put anything in. That's not from the complex. That will be when we get to the Parks and Rec fund. I don't think we put anything because going through that, I'm not sure.
That's good. This point.
Yeah, I see it going down. I mean, what's wrong?
Oh, I think that is. I know we have. Is it Consumers Energy that we have?
Well, you
That
said
gave us that.
the property and.
Yeah, we have a couple agreements. Like there's one over at the fire department. Don't you guys have a lease over there?
So the truck.
Oh,
Yeah. So there are a couple situations where the city leases something like property or something like that. I'm thinking about, didn't you guys used to let somebody put something on the property over there or something?
That mobile health unit,
Yeah.
we allow like the park, the state, they like, I follow $1 per year.
Yeah. So there's certain little arrangements like that. We also have
And we live in Inkster, that's what we get to perform consumers.
and do we still do this cell tower? Yeah.
Yeah, which is up for we do.
so you have contracts for those, but why is it that the activity goes down? You started out and it decreases for the projected activity.
What was
They have a contract?
Yeah, it was some of the agreements may have expired. They may not they may have been in place a year or two ago, and they may not still all of those may not be because it's a combination of different agreements that the city has to reflect that.
Thank you.
I have one question, Mr. Lee. So, the DTE, are they gonna renew it this year or are they done?
Just go through it.
Consumers, are they done or?
Just re-upped it. Well, it just needs an EL issue. Getting just re-up it.
Okay, right. Okay.
He was walking hospital on the Scabble prior to at that time. The mayor did 1 year, and then each year is an option.
Okay. Okay.
We sell you anything. They have to
Okay. Okay. It's late. My mind not working right now.
3 or 4 years that I hospital.
Okay.
And each January it was cut.
Okay.
I think it's like it's 98,000.
The first one was a hundred.
Some
Yeah, 90 star. Okay.
nice chunk of change there. And who's on click?
Is that it? Okay.
Tuesday.
So I'll keep rolling on. Did want to point out under the district court, big item there is the fines and forfeitures over at the district court. In talking with the court administrator, she did communicate that they have been pretty on top of the collections of that. They've been utilizing some new techniques in terms of making sure that they're doing everything they can to collect on any of these fines or forfeitures. They're tracking well to meet the amended amount. I think they may even the amount under the amended budget. I think they may have even have gotten close, if not already met that at this point in the fiscal year. And so we put in a estimate for next fiscal year that they would be generating 740,000. So that's another one of our main items there. Some of the smaller revenue sources, we still have our cable franchise fees. Those have kind of slowly started to show some decline. So we're trying to be fairly reasonable in those projections as, some people stream and some people move away from traditional cable. That franchise fee is more tied to Comcast and AT&T and the traditional cable. So as the viewing habits change, that kind of has a negative impact on that franchise fee. Just moving down and looking at some of the other revenue items. The next one I will point out, moving all the way down to the towards the bottom, big item is our ambulance number for out of the fire department. That's always an important number in terms of the revenue that they generate. And so this year we had a working estimate of $800,000. We're a little bit behind in terms of booking some of those revenues. There was a gap for several months in the last fall. We've been getting back to getting those amounts recorded. So the year-to-date number is a little bit low, but we're keeping a similar projection of 800,000. You can see the year prior that we did make it up to 788,000. So to the extent that we can maintain that number, that certainly would be helpful. Going to, and I'm on page
Why?
Page are we on here?
So I'm down to page 3, sorry.
Can I ask the question about the ambulance that you just talked about?
Sure.
Please, you were at the 800,000 and then you went down to 310. Why did that
So that's just the activity through December.
from June, from the new fiscal year, July 1st to December?
Right. So that's really the first half. And again, during kind of the beginning of the fiscal year and through the end of the summer and the fall, there was somewhat of a disconnect in terms of us getting everything recorded correctly. So we've been trying to get caught up. So that number may be a little bit low. Obviously we like to see it, halfway through the year, you like to see it at kind of a halfway mark.
You're running it.
But
The revenue.
yes. Yeah.
If you don't mind, I can bet this gets the numbers from our billing department. We are currently at $821,871.27, averaging $81,883 a month. So we are projected. We have 2 months left. $985,639.
Could you speak into the phone, Michael? I see. Okay. Did you repeat that?
So we are currently at 875,000 for the year. We still have 2 months left in the fiscal year. We're averaging 81,882. So we're projected to make $985,639 revenue for this fiscal year.
Hey,
You're on your job. I could tell you that. I hear you.
It's not a,
So in total, looking at the total revenues under the recommended budget, we're right at 16.87 million. Again, keeping in mind that some of that includes some one-time revenues from prior years for those grants that we discussed. But you can kind of compare that to last fiscal year and what was budgeted. and, kind of projecting out relatively flat, even with those one-time revenues. So that's, kind of a reflection of the situation where the city is from a revenue standpoint. A lot of that is built upon different pieces and dynamics. You could have certain grants that may cover structural expenses like a COPS grant, or, maybe something that's covering something that otherwise we would not do. But, year to year, those things tend to kind of shake out one way or the other. But, based on where we are right now, we're projecting just a little bit below $17 million in revenue for the general fund.
You're not cutting weeds anymore?
We are.
What are you cutting?
That's revenue. You threw me off about when you said we. I know, but
Okay.
I'm like, I ain't never been in the weed. I thought you wouldn't throw. Thought you were trying to trick me there for a second, Councilwoman. No, so that's revenue.
Okay.
I think at one time we were maybe charging.
Are you,
We found that we cut your property. If it's private, we would build you
right,
your airport
right.
that because it costs the city money. Because if we collected revenue, that goes for somebody tax, that goes to my county. They kill the city before they go out and force try to collect their money. If they don't collect them, play the 20 what we call charge back. We have what we call chargebacks. When they don't collect that money, we have to pay it back to them. So we were losing.
So what the city was doing when anytime they would cut a lot, the city cuts vacant lots, and then at times they would cut somebody who wasn't cutting their grass. At one point, the city was trying to keep track of that, send a bill out. Generally, when the vendor that's going out there, the contractor that's going out there, it's hard to expect them to keep track of what, they're just going out there. They get a list of addresses and they cut the grass. They don't make a distinction between if it's a vacant lot that's, city owned, county owned, state owned, or if it's a privately owned lot that's just not being kept. So it became a little bit of an administrative burden to really try and keep that, bill the person, make sure we're billing the right address, billing the owner, put it onto the property taxes, do all that. So that's what that category, that's a revenue category for weed cutting.
You get a grant for demolition?
In some instances, we do get grants for demolition. Sometimes it can come from CDBG dollars, but it's kind of on a case-to-case basis.
Typically comes from the county. County, because we're a small city, the county gets the demolition funds, and then they disperse it to whatever community requested and qualifies for it.
And I think, Councilwoman, I think what you're maybe pointing at, I kind of skipped over that, is the revenues out of the building department. Those are basically demolition permits that are being shown there.
Okay. Okay.
So that there is really where we have our projections for all of the licenses and permits that we expect out of the building department.
I was good. Hey.
And we plan to step up our enforcement of the ritual permits. I think it's been a little lax for the last couple of years. So we're going to be sending out letters, trying to get people in, which will hopefully generate more revenue. And then, of course, don't forget, we'll be splitting that revenue 69% to the building department, Bucelli, and the 31% will be going to the city.
Okay, no questions, then I will roll on over to the next page where we can start our appropriations. That's the expense side of things. And that's going to be starting with page number 4. So we can just go department by department. here. First up is City Council. You know, generally don't have a ton of items in here, but this is really kind of go off of historical numbers, some of the prior years. Obviously, salaries are fixed number. That's fixed by the compensation committee, so we didn't do anything with that. And then we just got several appropriations in there for supplies, special events, conferences, and subscriptions and memberships. A lot of that is historically different memberships for the city, municipal league, MML, and different types of memberships are paid through that general ledger account on behalf of the city. So that's why that number is at $30,000. But that's obviously you all's budget. I don't know what plans you guys may have or things you may want to do in the next fiscal year. But these, again, are numbers that we place into the recommended budget, just generally off of past operating cost and everything.
Mr. Carrington, I'm gonna ask the question I asked last year. Regarding special events, what was the activity for under city council?
I'll have to look that up.
I know one year they told us that was the Christmas lights, and I was like, when did city council vote to do the Christmas lights? I appreciated the honesty, but I was just wondering, because I'm like, if one or two of our council people are spending all the money in the budget for a special event that we didn't get invited to, I was kind of salty.
And
Yeah, some instances,
That's my travel phone.
no, they
And I mean, it doesn't really say when it was spent. It just shows the total amount, which could have been, before or after the fiscal year ended. So I was just curious, just for more clarity on it.
I think it had been, there were some Summerfest charges that were in there from last fiscal year or last summer. And that is
And then I'm only asking too, because I see the activity is 8609. The recommended is 4,000. So I'm just wondering if it's 8609 that's being spent, if that was a yearly trend and we cut it, what is it exactly, that we're cutting?
Well, you gotta know what you're spending on first.
Exactly.
so that
And again, that was 2022 to 2023. That wasn't for the amended budget. And I'm just saying that for clarity, because I was just looking back at the dates.
Yep.
So that might have been the same cost.
What, Christmas lights?
Yeah, from 2022 to 2023, because we're currently in 23 to 24, and we finna go into 24 to 25. So that actually might have been that. But yes, that was what, was communicated to us. It was Christmas lights.
Y'all vote on that?
No, we did not.
Nah.
Because I had brought it up at the meeting and they opened the GL line on the screens and expanded it, spoke to it, and admitted that there was, I guess, an error and that would be corrected. But it was like, to correct it, you put it back. But not, going forward, we won't necessarily pull it from that particular fund. Now, if we had voted on it or anything like that, that was fine, but it never had got brought up until we saw the budget.
Yeah, just getting stock for it.
Okay.
So you mad about the Christmas lights?
No.
Come to smell.
I like that.
He didn't get no lights on his house. That's what he's mad about.
Well, they were in downtown. We didn't get none in District 4. That's the.
Downtown.
It was a half and half between 6 and 6 and 5.
You put 6 in there.
That's what they was
You
at.
got most of the lights, though. You did get most of the lights. Like, oh, the little fence around the amphitheater, they look nice, too. All the way around. Your district, you number one.
I'm glad I'm number one.
You number one.
Also,
Wait, that
Put it up. Look at that.
I'll put fish.
You're right.
That's a lot
That's
of
messed up. That is.
Yeah, Councilman,
jackfruit too.
okay, when Just,
Y'all get that, I can get that breakdown.
yeah, thank you.
Channel that they import. Third meeting.
So that's an Aussie's budget there.
If they not.
Any other questions beside, and I'll make note of that, Mayor Pro Tem, on the, that special event.
Okay.
But again, that's generally pretty much what we have for council. I could pull it up now.
And then I guess, just while we're at it too, just make a note for, or anybody could expand upon. I see printing advertisements just blank. So I was just wondering, if we did send anything out, was that coming something like, Mayor, that you would be doing as far as a collective, how you've been doing with the newsletters and stuff like that? Or,
Well, no, if you want to send some out to your district or something, that would be different.
okay,
Yeah, we just throwing the newsletters in with the water bills while we still have water bills. Goal is to become paperless, or at least close to it.
I got you. I was just curious because I saw it's generally blank, but I just wanted to ask.
And if y'all want to put some money in that column, then, if you something you think you could foresee you want to do, then we can either do that now, or we can also amend it. We're going to amend the budget this year, probably a couple times. But,
And I know the paper portion and the postage is costly to send it.
very expensive, very expensive.
I think that's why we put you on code red. People call you out.
What the? Let's already had a nice way of doing it, Mr. Bivens.
Yes, she told me.
She asked me, was I the liaison?
I know that. I almost called it out.
Huh? I know.
Yeah, she teach it out to me. I know.
Okay, I'm just not getting it.
Okay.
Right now. So, there's nothing else on council. I'll move on to the district court.
You do?
The district court, if you look at salaries, permanent salaries, that first line item, if you see requested budget, it was at $629,400. The recommended budget was at $602. The court did request a 5% salary increase for their staff over there. In the recommended budget, it was not funded. Again, we were just at a deficit, and that was the number that we put in there. But that is again, they just want to be clear on what their request was from the district court. We didn't make any cuts or anything, but we're funding them, just at their current staffing levels and at the current rates. But they have requested a 5% increase for their employees. So that is certainly one item that we wanted to point out. They did make a couple other requests that I wanted to point out. One was if you go down towards the middle, you see a request for $70,000 for computer services. They have an issue over with the the recording system that they have in one of the courtrooms, and so they've been having to shuffle back and forth between courtrooms, and they've got an estimate of, I think that equipment is going to cost them about $40,000. So that they put that request in. That's why that number is up like it is, and I think that is really in terms of the court, those were the two major issues that they had. The salary increase for their staff and the employees there at the district court, and then the request to get that communication equipment cleared up over there at the court.
Does anybody know what that communication equipment entails?
I did speak with the court administrator. I can give more. I'll give more details on that.
Tell her to send over whatever the estimate she received. We should be able to get that down. I mean, it shouldn't be 40,000 for. We should be able to get that. They're not.
It was from another company.
Yeah, I think they have separate IT people, I believe. That's too much.
I get 10.
Should we get back to none?
That's why I was just wondering what it was.
Right. Gotta be something real nice.
Yeah. And I was just wondering too, sometimes like, is that something the state courts mandate at the level that they're getting, whatever the case may be?
The impression I had is just if it was more so malfunctioning, so that they had to go to they couldn't use the
Whole new system.
they had to switch courtrooms. I guess there's one was the courtroom that they were having to use was smaller, and it was just presenting some logistical issues and everything. So okay. So that's really the main things that I wanted to point out in terms of the district court budget, for as you consider, go through the budget deliberations. Those were, I think, two of the key items that they had included in their requested budget. The next is the mayor's office, and a couple of things there. One is we've there were several expenses that were in the prior fiscal year budgets that mayor took some steps to reduce the cost there. Namely, the prior mayor had an assistant that was being paid out at a level higher than the mayor's using at the current time, and we're so we included those savings into the mayor's budget that you see reflected there. I think by and large we kept most of the other items in line with the costs that have been going on there.
And the prior administrative assistant actually was being paid $80,000. 15,000 of this 80 was paid out of a different account. So we'll be saving that 15 also. I didn't put that on the list because it's not part of my department. I don't know if it was the water department. Where was safe getting paid?
Special projects.
Special projects, but not okay. Special projects. So that 15 will be saved too. In a
different department.
Yeah.
Yeah, ain't that was the general.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Moving on down, we have the city clerk. We've got I think 2 full-time positions in there, Gina, for you. Our city clerk, and then the is Malika the assistant deputy clerk, and then we also, as you know, for next fiscal year, there's going to be we're in a presidential election year, so there's going to be a lot of election activity. We do have a part-time person included in there in order to assist with the, I know the voter turnout is obviously higher during a presidential year, and I believe you got a primary in August coming up.
That's me.
So, we try to budget for those costs, and so that's really kind of what's going on there in terms of the staffing. And some of the related costs and everything. So I think everything is pretty straightforward there in terms of what is being sought with that for that department.
10. And which loans is going to take?
Countries are about
Please.
It varies. This past one in February was like about 30,000 plus, but I did fill out for it to be reimbursed for that 6
get reimbursed.
Yes.
So is there any elections that I guess we still can't get reimbursed?
Local elections. When we put on our own elections, we pay.
So like council, when our council election was like,
How is it? If go back something. You can. Okay. Good.
So next department is IT. We've primarily kept much of the tried to keep the budget in line with the activities. If you can look and see where the amended budget, that second column was only at $352,000. Our activity is projected to be well above that. So we tried to get the recommended budget more in line with where the current activity is. We tried to dig in to see what's going on. Where we really missed the mark was on some of the expenses tied to some of the services, not really just the consultant is, we really were kind of missing the mark with some of the costs associated with like our internet and that kind of stuff. So we did increase the cost from last year's or from the current fiscal year's recommended from the current fiscal year's amended budget. But the increase was just due to us looking at the actual activity and getting the recommended budget in line with that.
Yeah, and so that 150,000 number is going to include the new BSNA system. That's 100,000 annually. We're going to go to Civic Plus for Parks and Rec. That's not that expensive. I think that might be 8,000 annually. So this is kind of new for us because we've been operating under a different system. But that's going to be a reoccurring cost, but it's going to be better service for us. And then we may have, well, I'll talk to you about that later. We're going to have some other technology upgrades that we're going to have.
Could we expand upon telephone?
I hate the telephone. Because I don't use mine, and we spend a lot of money on telephones, and they do a lot of things that we do not use. We could basically, they're almost like walkie-talkies where I could talk to another department. We don't use any of that stuff. But we're paying a big number every year for telephones. I was told that we cannot go landline lists because I'd be happy to do that. So we have a work cell phone, I have my personal cell phone, I got landline, I got my sister's landline. It's crazy. But I am going to attempt to negotiate something with AT&T. We were talking about today. I had a meeting today with fiber optics and some other stuff to see if we can get them to absorb some of the costs we're spending on our cell phones, at least, because we have AT&T. So I have an idea to try to leverage what we're spending to try to get more out of it and maybe get our costs, squashed a little bit. Because other people want to work with us too. T-Mobile's approached us and they want our business. They always keep coming at you, just like, for cable companies and stuff like that. So I got to see what we can get out of.
So telephone, is that a combination of cell phone and the landlines for all over the city, or okay? Did we ever get that situation resolved? Because I know in the past, Phineas was working with our account manager, AT&T, who ended up leaving and going over to the city of Westland. I'm talking about the account manager, where they had found all of those lines that weren't in use, had been being billed for years.
Yeah.
That process started. We were presented with a budget one year, and it was weird that Councilwoman Howard kept mentioning on the Excel spreadsheet how it was just weird to us and it was never presented like that before. But it talked about $113,000. We were supposed to get a credit because they're not going to give us a check for $113,000. Then when we got that budget, it literally said next to it an amendment of $113,000. When I asked what it was for, they said we didn't get the discounts. And when I asked why, not one person had an explanation, and to this day, we never got one. So I was just curious, did we ever go back into looking into that? Because in all honesty, that corporation saw there was no activity on those 96 lines. And to be fair to a municipal government, giving a credit is the best thing to do, because they said, well, you never called and canceled the lines, so we never even said anything. But it was really the fiduciary responsibility of our account manager to say, hey, we reviewed your account just like a banker would. You haven't used these. Is anything going on? Do you even know you got these lines? Because nobody could, if I'm not mistaken, could even trace where those numbers were. And I think it was going to the Civic Arena and other places like that, right? And so when it just got lost, IT asked for an amendment of $113,000. So I was just wondering if that is still incorporated in this cost.
I hope you could talk to, that was when Walter was here there, so you could speak to Walter.
Okay.
Because we did get some money. I just don't know anymore. I know the last conversation, because strange reason, I'm not authority on that account. I don't know why. For some strange reason. I think we did get some money. I just am not.
Okay.
Walter was dealing with his
Jim Cooper?
listen.
The reason, and another reason I asked is because if I know Phineas at the time had investigated that, and I went in his office, he had stacks of bills.
He did when he left. So I no reason he put my name. I don't know why.
Well, you're the institutional knowledge guy, so he wanted.
And Walter was dealing with it, so we did get some. I just don't know what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to make sure that all those were resolved and that there's nothing else out there that was lingering. Because I know
We cut a bunch of phones. We got rid of a bunch of lines.
Okay.
Necessary lines in the city. Go ahead do that. But far as the money wise, I don't, he Walter would know better than me because he was dealing directly with AT&T. Yeah.
Gotcha. And just to what the mayor was saying as well, I know even when we switched over to 123 Net with the fiber system, there's the potential, because I know we did a lot of the phones and they're connected through a VoIP system, but I don't know if there's a potential for any others to be converted over in an effort, because I don't know if you all know or not, but traditional landline, when I left AT&T, was about $70 a month. If you switch to VoIP, it would be anywhere from 30 to 35. I don't know if the costs have decreased since then or not. Sometimes you do want traditional landline as a backup, but that's only if AT&T even still kind of sort of will offer it, because
But what the mayor says is correct. The phones we have it out there is through a multitude of things we just don't know. It's a Teams setup, so we just never got into the weeds. It's probably overkill for us. What it does is more set for like a private company, something like that do Teams and all that. We don't do all that.
Okay. Y'all know I'm gung ho IT.
We don't.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the Treasury Department. No changes there in the staffing levels. Do want to point out under the professional accounting services, that's where we pay the consultants. That number is budgeted at $260,000. That's the last line item under Treasury for this page, on page number 5. You can see where the activity for 22-23 was $352,000. We only budgeted for this current fiscal year $260,000. We're pretty close, if not over that number currently. That's why we have a projected activity for that for $320,000. Part of that is due to the backlog of work for needing to get caught up on the audit. A number of hours are being incurred by Manor with that, as well as having to spend resources in terms of catching up on some of the accounting work that didn't get done in the fall. So there's, those numbers for last year and this fiscal year are going to be pretty high. Next fiscal year, we're just trying to keep it at a similar number, if not lower. So you see the activity is over $300,000 for what we're projecting for this year, $350,000 from last year, but we're still hoping to maintain it at a get the operations back to a more normalized level. So that's why we have the projection at $260,000. Even though we know we're gonna have to hit the ground running July 1 for next fiscal year in terms of the audit, and there are a number of activities that we're gonna have to continue working on and getting caught up and everything.
Mr. Truth, you working at all like over it because we're just not caught up yet. Why are we still keeping it? And 260?
Well, I mean, some of it is we just gotta try and do. Some of it is the expectation is over the next couple months we can be all but caught up.
The delay you say on.
Yeah,
Please, good cut.
getting caught up. Yeah, and hopefully we can get back to a more normalized cadence. Just in terms of month to month weekly and everything. So.
Excuse me. Okay, I had one to the restroom, but as far as salaries permit, this 155, is that the treasurer included in it?
It is, yes.
Okay.
So, we're keeping the position funded. If there's, need to, change that, but we just want to keep it, it's being funded at the current level. So there's no change in the amount there for that.
So the services that are being done that the state has set down, they're still here, correct? That the one that
She's talking about Manor.
So Manor under the last council, if you recall, the discussion was to have Manor do more policy work, and the state was going to pay that. I think it was like 50,000.
55 or so.
Yeah.
That hasn't been done yet.
that they basically shelved that. That's initially they were talking about what's her name? Joyce Parker. So they were going to do a more policy driven activity that got shelved. You know, the former mayor, once Plant Moran announced that they were leaving, then the city executed an agreement with Manor to do more of the day-to-day stuff. So that's the current situation, and the city is on the hook for those expenses. And that's why I was saying, even though it was only showing through December, it's about $50,000. We're well above that, because if you recall, the contract basically is billing Manor out on average at $200 an hour.
$200?
$200 an hour, yeah.
We're way over.
So, okay, so now here's the question that I want to ask. When are you gonna get a treasurer? And if in fact you do get a treasurer, are we still gonna keep Manor? Because we, like Plant Moran, are we still gonna keep them?
Technically, Manor's not doing treasury job responsibilities right now. They're doing audit work.
Okay.
So whether we keep Manor, it's probably up to us, but we're gonna have some sort of firm helping us. A lot of things that Plant Moran used to do,
Right.
we're gonna have to have somebody pick up some of those things. Depending on who we hire as treasurer, I hope to have a treasurer by June. But depending on who we hire as treasurer, we're gonna see what their capacity is to do the treasurer responsibilities and see if they can pick up a couple of things that Plant Moran used to do, hopefully to save us money. And then we'll have someone else do the things like reconciliation. Somebody else has to do that.
Yeah,
Somebody else has to look at, make sure our bank statements every month are in line, everything is there to make sure no one's stealing and doing different things. So we have to hire someone, whether it's Manor, it could be a number of different firms.
Okay.
Because at that point, we got to get a good price, because we're paying top dollar right now because we're in an emergency situation. And we owe them a lot of money.
What all was Plant Moran over?
Plant Moran, phew,
They did.
you want to list, they did a lot of stuff, but
So they were doing tax distributions, which are essentially the city collects property taxes, and then we have to distribute them to the school districts, the county. It's a kind of a technical, because someone, let's say, pays $1,000 in property taxes. Well, the city may keep $500. $50 goes to Wayne County, $100 goes to this school district. Inkster's a little bit different because we got multiple school districts. You might have a property judgment, a legal judgment. So you got to distribute all those. You got to figure out, of all the tax money that was collected, who gets what. So you have the tax distributions. They also did the bank reconciliations. That's an important thing, as the mayor indicated, because with the accounting and finance, you got to have separation of responsibilities and everything. So this person who's handling the bank account can't reconcile. It's not that they can't. It's just not a best practice. So tax distributions, the reconciliations. They also did audit prep and budget. They worked on the budget, and so those are probably the main things that they would work on. They also another big thing is journal entry. So you got to have another person in addition to the treasurer. Somebody has to create the budget, the journal entries. If we need to move something around, you actually have to do a manual budget, a manual journal entry. So one person has to write that, another person has to approve it. Again, it's that separation. So it's not so much that one person can't do it. It's just you got to have another set of eyes on it. Yeah.
Which responsibilities are we, that you just listed, are we looking to put into that treasury position?
I think it depends on the person. Yeah. So you can kind
Be
of
able to compensate them if we take some responsibilities away, and pay the treasurer a little bit.
Yeah, and kind of the situation is similar to the law firms. Plant Moran was being paid at a rate for a number of years, and during that time, the rates in accounting have just gone up. And so, we went from paying Plant Moran X amount, and now, even though Manor's working a lot more hours, to go to start paying 200, we weren't paying nowhere near $200 an hour for Plan Moran. That's one of the reasons why they probably, this was just not a high margin business for them because, it cost them money to get a young accountant and get a senior manager and stuff. And so, part of it is just the cost in that field has gone up. And so to the extent that we can figure out what the best mix of responsibilities and finding a firm and, whether it's man or someone else and understanding, what needs to be done. Probably just don't, right now our hands are tied because we're paying, $200 for somebody to reconcile bank accounts, $200 an hour for somebody. Not saying that that's not good money, but sometimes, some of these things can be done at a more cost-effective manner. So we just got to try and figure out, we don't want to, cut, be too cheap and suffer from a service standpoint, but it's really just trying to, under the new cost environment that's out there, figuring out how best to do it because really the old way is somewhat outdated.
I think that kind of goes into play with and that's why I mentioned if we could potentially compensate the treasurer more because from the looks of it, a lot of the mistakes that were made last year were heavily treasury involved. And I don't know if that's the reason why, but if we want to remain competitive, in my opinion, then we may have to kind of
We do.
boost it up a little.
You gotta remember, keep in mind, the treasurer's number at 94 has been there for 8 years at least. It's went up. I mean, you gotta be competitive. We have to pay a lot more than that to get a seasoned treasurer. If we hire somebody younger who's just getting started, but then then somebody's got to train them. We don't have somebody else to train. We could go out and pay somebody to do it, but now we got to add those two numbers together and where are we at. So it depends on the capacity of the person we hire. But we're looking at if they're great, we can add some responsibilities that Plan Moran used to do to the treasurer, pay them a little bit more so we can be competitive, and then outsource whatever that person cannot do. That's the hope.
We're on the same page.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just real quick, Councilwoman Howard asked how long we're going. That's tonight. It's up to you guys, but I did hear some chatter because we scheduled a meeting for Friday that no one really don't be here on Friday. And I'm not tripping. I don't want to be here either on Friday, but I'm willing to go however long tonight to get what we can get done, me personally, even though I already know all this junk. But it's up to this body, because if you got somewhere to go or your brain just shut off because it's been a long day, But we do have to get it done because we have to get it passed by the second meeting and by June 1st.
Yeah, I mean, that's according to the charter. I mean, we're in an unusual situation. That was one of the reasons why we were pushing just to get at least get the general fund budget out here so we could start these deliberations. I think, we do have time. I think the charter says the second meeting in May. We're obviously not on that time schedule. But we don't want to be in a situation where I think in the last couple of years, council was literally passing it at the end of June.
Yeah.
And so we just want to, we want to just stay in front. So we got ample time.
I would feel more comfortable if we pass it in May, even if we had to create a special meeting for the third week in May. Because obviously we have a meeting on Monday. We're not ready. We haven't got through it yet. So by the second meeting.
Because we still got to have the budget. We also got to have the budget hearing. So it's going to be
Public hearing.
Yeah. Got to have a public.
Well, that's got to be at the second meeting in May. It's not going to be at the first. So we're going to have to schedule something after that to pass this. We've blown enough deadlines over the last 4 years. We got to bite the bullet, get it done. We don't have to be here Friday necessarily, but look, yeah, we can do it. It's going to speed up.
So what dates are you talking about for us to get to meet again?
Well, if we cancel Friday, then we need to pick another day, maybe next week, where we can continue. And we may have some of the other funds ready by then also. For sure. That may work out good, it's up to y'all. I mean, I'm here, I'm in town, so,
I'm not here, the 9th, the
Okay.
We'll fix him.
Y'all wanna do a week from today? Cause she's leaving on the Thursday. Today's Wednesday? Okay. Y'all wanna do next Wednesday?
Yeah, and back.
Okay. Yeah, May 8th at 6? Okay.
I'm-
Sounds good. Now y'all got your Friday night free. Everybody.
What we need to be asking is, Mr. Darren, is he gonna be available? That's what we,
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
will be available? Okay, because I don't want you to be mad at me, 'cause
It'll go like quick without him. We just glance at it. If he ain't here, we just glance at the numbers.
just
check
again,
on it.
another sunny 75-degree day. I'm
That's what
Uh,
I'm saying, huh?
front of
It was hard today, wasn't it?
this week I did put my stuff in my trunk just in case. I ain't have a Monday. I did today.
That's probably be with him, but I can have this.
Stop.
Like, I'm swinging.
Wait. You the deputy treasurer. What do you do? So if he's not here, you gotta be here.
Alternate the three is swing. Can't compare the top.
Yeah, y'all said,
No, next Wednesday works.
okay. They cancel Friday.
Three finish the PA, three starts the pay,
Yeah, let's finish whatever y'all want to.
the page, okay, it's. That's a miracle. Okay, take.
We were just we were on treasury. We were just going, talking about the.
Let's at least get through the city attorney, so we'll have that information.
Yeah.
So that's on the next page. Let's get through all of,
So I think that's, that was really, the main thing with treasury, keeping the staffing levels the same from a budget standpoint. We covered the consultants. And then we've got the amounts in there for the next fiscal year audit. We have a contract for our assessor, Wayne County, WCA, that I think that number is already locked in. There's usually increases on that. We bake those numbers in. And that is pretty much it for treasury. Next is our building maintenance. One of the bigger line items is the insurance, and that's the liability insurance that's in the interim. So we've got some of those numbers came in higher than they were budgeted. You can see I'm looking at right in the middle of for Department 265. If you look at the amended budget, you see 550, and right now the projected activity was a little bit higher than that at 641. So we put in a little bit of an increase. We generally don't get those numbers until sometime right around the beginning of the fiscal year. I think we get those numbers like in end of July. Yeah, because coverage is going to effect in August, September. So that's what is behind that estimate there. Then we've got utilities, just trying to track those numbers. Building maintenance, and Jerome, you can if there's any questions, Jerome can speak to that. But this is where we have most of our numbers for things that go on with the city facilities, as well as some of the things, not only from a maintenance standpoint, but utilities, insurance. We tend to put all of those into that department there.
What's professional service security? What is that?
That's the alarm system. Well, you have an alarm system here, then you have an alarm system at the Justice Center that are paid for. And I cover the parking rate. I cover it. Only building I don't cover is mine. That comes out of the ward fund.
So when we trip the alarm, they call you, right?
Don't find that part.
I didn't say it was funny. I'm just saying you just do it all.
we call him, he ain't coming though. He's Centurion.
At least he ain't setting the alarm while you in the building.
I don't come in here and just an alarm is on. I've never ever.
I was in the building and I was like, what just beat?
You did it.
No, somebody said it while I was here working.
They didn't know he was here.
You did.
Okay, so nothing else on building maintenance. We'll go ahead and move on to city attorney. Generally, we under the current contract, we had two components. One was the fixed monthly at $6,000 a month. If you look at the amended budget, you see the $72,000 figure, and then we had the more hourly month to month item, and we have budgeted $500,000 in there. The numbers are a little bit off from an activity standpoint because we haven't been quite correctly attributing the bill. We really should be splitting the bill between those two categories. Only should be have a $6,000 each month going to the professional consultant. So that's why the numbers are a little off there. But just try to, if you look at the total, 572 was budgeted, 72 plus 500, and then if you go over to the projected activity, you see that we're projecting right around that number. So the split is a little bit off, but the total is pretty much the same, right at 572. If you look at that projected activity with 139 and 433. And then this fiscal year, for this budget, for the recommended budget for next fiscal year, right now we're working with an estimate of $350,000. We can obviously change that pending what the arrangement is with the new city attorney, but the current number in there for everything is at $350,000.
So if we decide to spend, let's say, 50,000 more or 100,000 more, we have to find somewhere in this budget to cut that. Because we're already down 170,000. This is not a balanced budget. So if we decide to spend more in any category, we need to figure out where we're cutting from.
What's what year we dump, you know, 1.2 million to 375.
Well, it's not, though, most of that, 572 is the real number. So 72 for your $6,000 monthly fee and 500 for civil litigation by the hour.
And Councilman, some of that 1.3 million you're looking at, we put in judgment, what we call judgment levies.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's money that's basically being collected via property taxes if the city enters into either loses a case or enters into a settlement. Oftentimes we'll put that on the property taxes. This is where we collect it. So that if you look at that 1.3 million, 561,000 of that is tied to a judgment levy. And that's really being offset by revenue on top back on page 1. So it's really 572 plus 180 in legal settlements that were put in place during this year.
Mr. Chair? Oh, I'm sorry.
So basically, I'm trying to cut a little over 200,000 from what we're spending on legal services. 225, something like that.
Yeah.
If it was 572, I'm trying to get down to 350.
We're cutting 277.
It's true. Oh, peace out.
Here's calculate.
Well, can I ask a question? Okay, so how many of those, how many negotiations for labor did we have last year?
I know, ask me.
Ashley?
Because the water department got a new contract.
Right. So they kind of went,
Oh,
right, so they kind of went, that's another reason why that bill is high up there too, because the contracts, right? I mean, the labor negotiations.
they didn't use them.
You didn't use them?
They didn't use a lawyer at all. They just negotiated.
God dang.
That's Inkster for you. Mhm.
Jerome was the lead negotiator.
He was the lead negotiator.
I trust you 99%, but God dog.
And most of the time, those are kind of baked in because we really negotiate every couple of years, 2 to 3 years, depending on how long the contract
You know,
is.
attorneys at one time were,
They used to.
they did.
Yeah, and some of it is the police and fire, those contracts tend to be a little more complicated.
That's what I'm saying.
ASME tends to be a little bit more just kind of numbers driven.
Okay.
But the police and fire, you get into a lot of
So they didn't have that last year then, right? Or,
We did not. We're not up for another 2 years.
okay.
Yeah, I think it was just us.
Yeah.
one of the police unions.
I think command is up this year. We got to renegotiate command's contract over at police.
I sure you got.
I can go back from with that.
This good time.
So that's really it unless there are any other questions. I think we want to stop there. We can pick it up with personnel HR next week.
And I'll probably email you with some questions.
For sure. If anybody has any questions, just, between now and then, we'll be providing some additional information. We're still working through the other funds. we should have that for you. And again, we'll just add that to everyone's book
And just in case people have the same question, when you respond, send it to everybody.
for sure.
Because they may wonder about the same information.
Thank you, Darren.
Right, good?
You got a pleasure you can read.
Oh, it's in the meet. Oh, shit, I forgot about that. Public participation? Anybody?
Okay.
Mayor and council communications?
I like to think that you,
We got a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
8:33 p.m.
This wasn't even 8:30. I thought we were gonna be in a midnight.
And so with them, get one and soda. See, I'm sorry, you said,
It doesn't take long.
I need to be dealing with that.